Americans. And this is Ed, and I'm in San Diego. Welcome back. You're on Global TV Talk Show, and this is a news briefing, if you will, about the September 26th International Teleconference. And we have people from across cultures, across borders, across industries, and welcome, Paul Falcone.
Hi, Ed. Good morning, everybody.
Yeah, well, your name is showing up as Lisa Tanjian.
I'm gonna change. I'll
that?
change it. It's a client of mine, and if she only knew that she showed up on all of my things, it got locked into my machine. So I'll change it real quick.
Okay, good. All right, so this is a preview of coming attractions. The September 26th event will have more than 18 participants, according to the latest tally. And Eva, thank you so much for being my person on the ground there in Malmo. And I really appreciate your introductions. I'd like to ask you to work with me as I start to zero in on getting more corporate participation from Copenhagen and also Sweden, and if we can, from Oslo and more people from everywhere. And so Inigo, where are you? You're in your van somewhere in Europe, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I'm in Norway right now, so I'm doing the Nordic summer road trip. So I've been in Denmark, Sweden, and now Norway.
I see. So which fjords are you in right now?
We've been changing of fjord so many times that I'm not sure, but we are supposed to drive 4 hours in a few minutes to get to the Preikestolen, like the highest rock with a nice view to the fjord. So we should sleep around there tonight.
Oh, that's really interesting. Okay, so do you camp out every night? Is that what you do? You
Uh,
make a barbecue, or
that depends on the day. Like some days, last night we did a barbecue. Some other days we just cook inside. Some other days we go to a restaurant. Other times with friends. So there is a combination of many things. I have 3 kids here with me, so we have to change what we do every day. Otherwise, they get bored.
So I was very fortunate that an eagle came to New York last March 13, I think was the date when I did the live in-person New York event, and you were a speaker, and you met my other clients, and it was wonderful to have you there in person.
Yeah, it was great to share some time with some industry peers. It was very interesting, the subjects and the atmosphere. So it was really nice. Looking forward to do it again, maybe in a few months.
Yeah, it was a great trip. Turned out just great. Doing unscripted in-person events is something that I started doing last century. And then COVID came along and wiped all that out, and I had to learn how to do this. So some of you have been with me on this program since beginning it in March of 2020. Uh, this is program production number 858.
Wow.
Just so you know that I've been talking a lot. And some people have been listening, and so we've been able to build an audience. And the idea that Ava and I came up with, I don't know, a year or more ago, was for me to finally show up in Malmo, Sweden, in person, while visiting Joanne's family across the bridge in Copenhagen, as well. And so we started to plan this as a live event, and it was very, very difficult to get agreement and sponsors. Many people aren't personally familiar with me, and so I just pulled the plug and says, "Let's go virtual and not spend any money." And this will be very efficient and effective, not only on the day that we're going to produce the event, September 26th, but also for weeks, months, years subsequent to that recording date because of this. And so this show today is a quick preview, a précis, if you will, of what's going to happen September 26th in bigger format. Now, some of you have to jump off real quick. So, Ava, why don't you go first and just tell us about your consultancy now and a little bit about prior to your being in business for yourself.
Okay, my name is Eva Klevas, and Swedish person, as you might have understood. Being a consultant now for 4.5 years. HR as a base. So what I'm doing now as a consultant is supporting both smaller companies, but also biggers in all kinds of HR-related topics, depending on what they need. So from labor law-related issues, when they need to get rid of people, often it is what's happening, or if they need coaching or just an interim HR director or whatever. So that's what I do. And I'm so much looking forward meeting you in person, Ned.
I know, it'll be great.
Yeah, it will be awesome.
And I look forward to meeting Thomas also. So tell me, when you were earlier, going back more than a year, I think, with Air Liquide, you were in a more just easy word, senior position. And so are you looking at larger organizations such as that, or are you helping smaller companies grow larger?
Well,
Or,
both, I would say
manage that process.
no,
Yeah.
but I mean, being an employee, I've primarily been working with large organizations. So I really enjoy that. So I had the honor of being the interim HR director for the Nordics for Air Liquide, which was a fantastic experience. I really enjoyed it. It's a fantastic company. And that has its charm. But sometimes it's nice working with small companies as well, because it's such a difference with the kind of challenges that they are facing and what they actually need help with.
Yeah,
So
interesting.
it depends, but it's nice with the bigger ones sometimes because it's normally more global. And
Yeah,
the smaller
great.
ones are more local.
So I want to introduce you to Paul Falcone, who has many, many years of a very large organization, management, HR leader, CHRO, and I'm sorry, I'm stumbling around, Paul. Why don't you stop me from talking? Take over.
That was actually a beautiful introduction, Ed. Thank you. Now, hi, everybody. Yeah, most of my career I spent in entertainment. So as head of HR for Nickelodeon, head of international HR for Paramount Pictures. I've also worked in healthcare and biotech. So that was kind of my background. About 2 years ago, I launched my own consulting firm. And I'm also a writer. I'm a columnist for SHRM, the Society for Human Resources Management. And I've written now 17 books between the American Management Association's Amicom Books Division and HarperCollins Leadership. So those are my two publishers.
Well done.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank
So,
you.
Paul, on that, before we jump around here, I noticed a post you did either last night or earlier this morning. I was up online around 4:30 or so, getting ready for this, and I saw it came through about the political situation in the U.S. and the difficulty that could be within companies. And I saw that post along with that HarperCollins PR. Do you want to just address that in 30 seconds? Because this is, uh, uh, politics in the U.S. is getting crazy and it's about to get nuttier.
You just answered the question, Ed. It's so wild out there, you guys. I write
Yeah.
for what's called Homeland Magazine, which is for military people who are transitioning into the private sector. And so I said, well, when you get that first job in the private sector, don't talk politics right now. We're not ready for it as a country. It's too divisive. You can even say one thing in goodwill, people take it out of context. Certainly not, we're not the only country going through extremism right now, but it's just something that from an HR standpoint, I can give them the guidance sometimes that says, yes, you have a political right to free speech. On the other hand, if it contradicts the company's policy on anti-discrimination, anti-harassment, anti-retaliation, anti-bullying, you could be disciplined or fired. So just probably the workplace isn't the place for you to be bringing these things up, especially not with your subordinates who could feel like you're pressuring them. So again, I don't take a stand on this in my writing in terms of who you should vote for in red hats and blue hats. But you guys know in the United States, we're kind of divided right now, to say the least. And I think giving a little bit of wisdom to the folks out there to kind of cool it at work and not make the workplace your place to stump and to make arguments for who people should vote for is probably in your best interest career-wise.
I think the choice that Vice President Harris made this morning with that governor of Wisconsin is actually like taking an aspirin. It's just going to mellow things out a little bit without appointing somebody who is more colorful, charismatic, but very controversial no matter what side you're looking at.
And he was a high school teacher earlier in his career, so he can't be that bad. Teachers are good to have at the helm, and I understand he has a very good sense of humor. He smiles a lot, but still can deliver. So we'll see. No one knows. We're going to see where it goes, but the next 3 months it could be wild, at least in the United States. So
All right, let's quickly go to Stephen and then Ali because he's got to jump. Stephen.
I just have a quick question for Paul, then the rest of the group. How far do you take this, Paul? I mean, do you, in a corporation, do you limit people's hats that they can wear, their t-shirts they can wear? What about the bumper stickers on their car if they drive into a company parking facility? What's your thinking there?
I think there's a book in there, Steve. I think it's a great question. You have you have the right to tell people not to wear paraphernalia that's going to, invoke arguments with other people. So the hats can stay home, or you can ask them to put them away in their drawer. What's on a bumper sticker on their car in the parking lot? Probably not too much you can do about that. It's just a rule of reason. But to the degree that I can save people from themselves and not make them the object of an investigation internally, I'm trying to help with that by calming the room a little bit and giving everyone a little bit more peace of mind. This is a great question, though. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, Ali Shami in the Seattle area. Ali and Stephen partnered, co-authored a book that's become a red hot seller. Ali, take it from there.
Good morning, good evening, everybody. I'm really get excited every time I get the opportunity to listen to everyone. I walk away learning so much, and I have almost 30 years experience in the industry, aviation industry. I worked for the Boeing company as a senior manager, and I succeeded in retiring early and started my consulting company. But I didn't move that far away from the company. I was asked to come back as a senior leadership consultant. And yes, I had the great pleasure to work with Stephen in publishing the partnering successfully across. I don't know if it's clear. It's probably.
No, you can't
No,
see it.
stop there. It was perfect there.
Oh, good. Okay. So
Okay,
partnering successfully with American firms, it was a gap that we thought would be good to edit. Yep.
So do you have a slide you want to show?
Well, not from the book. I have a couple of slides just talking in general about, Stephen got, of the book. Okay, I thought an excerpt from the book. Thank you, Stephen. And also, by the way, my keyboard has been acting up, so that's why I didn't put my contact and hello to everybody in the chat. So,
okay.
So yeah, the whole thing, the book started as I've been doing cultural awareness training for decades, and most of the books are to help Americans how to do business overseas. I mean, you go to England, you go to Australia, you go to Africa, it's all how to do business across other cultures. But there's not any books, any real, books on doing business with Americans. I think the assumption is Hollywood does a great job in teaching everyone of the world how to do business with Americans. So I thought that would be a nice gap to fill, and it's getting a lot of great responses.
So Ali, I know you've got to run fast here today. So tell us about FTD. Okay, make good use of your time here to be effective.
Yes, for those who are familiar with FTD, Flowers to Deliver, this is not Flower to Deliver. It's FTD Global. It stands for Feeling, Thinking, and Doing. Everything we do from the day we open our eyes in the morning or until the night or in the minute we're born until until we transition to another world, we go through these cycles, 3 cycles: feeling, thinking, and doing. And this is something that keeps on, and so it's more into the intellectual, not into necessarily in the intellectual as much as it is in the feeling of working with people. Reminds me of the humanity leadership that Stephen talks about. It's the other aspect. It's completing that emotional intelligence and having a good balance between thinking, feeling, and actions and doing things. So it's just thinking and feeling without leaving a legend doing things. It's just incomplete. So my consulting company is cultural awareness training, that I bring in executives together. And once the executives bring them together to partner, that doesn't end there, right? You got to go through the middle management and the people and the workers to understand each other's cultures. It doesn't just end with the CEOs going, yes, we want to partner and let's go do business. It's more than that.
So just in case you didn't hear, use the chat to introduce yourselves to everybody, or with your website, email. That'll be your ROI for connecting easily away from this live broadcast.
If I can I just say something about the book,
yes,
that Ali and Stephen wrote. I wrote a preview of it. I read the whole book, and also I wrote some comments on it. And especially, I mean, I've worked in over 60 countries around the world, and one of the things that I think that Ali and Stephen go into very importantly is how you are effective from a cross-cultural standpoint, and also working with individuals in those companies, so that way you can partner to be effective. And so I think it's a seminal work. It's a great work. And if people are going to be working internationally or globally, they need to have some of the underpinnings of that.
Thank you.
wonderful. Ali, what are you going to be doing the rest of the day?
Rest of the day, I have a string of meetings, mostly mentorship, and plus working on just working with large teams to enjoy, to have a good time today. So just want to turn it from being stressful into something that is productive and fun.
Okay, so to what extent do you talk about personal branding?
So with personal branding, that's a great question.
Well, there's a couple of reasons I'm doing this. First of all, we're going to lead to Philip next, because that's going to be his thing. But I wanted to show you and the world that's listening that this is not rehearsed. It's authentic. We're just being people here.
That's a great question. I mean, personal branding, I just want to jump straight into like managers and leaders. For the last 30 years, we've been, or especially the last 20 years, there's been a lot of discussions about, oh, you have to be a leader, not a manager. And you will hear, oh, manager does this, leaders do this. Oh, you are a manager. And I'm one of the few. I've seen several leaders going like, wait a minute, not all good managers know how to be great leaders. We know that. But we also know that most of great leaders are good managers. You can be a leader. So they always associate leader as being nice with the people in the company, doing great job, making them feel good. And that's not true. I can be a leader like this, making everybody feel really good and not worry about the business, not worry about managing the business. Guess what? My company would last only for 1 year. I will have a very happy employees, but it will go out of business. But at the same time, you can look at, if I want to be only a manager and not a leader that listens to the people and treat them really well, I may last for about 1.5 years, but the company will also disappear and I have miserable employees. So branding is just the whole time just in our mind thinking, how am I going to be looked at? Am I going to be looked at as a leader or a manager? I say you have to be both. And all the leaders that I met, they're really, really good managers, that they know what to manage. They manage things and lead people. They select what are the things. They have the KPIs that they have to watch out for. The business as well, also do my people, when they leave work, do they feel really, really good about their job? Are they looking forward to come to work?
So you show you care.
Yes, because you've heard me say that so many times. Just people don't care what you know until they know that you care. And I can be in discussions, and I can say I've achieved this, I've done this, I've done this. And how many times you go to meetings, and then at the end you realize, like, you know what, we collectively did not come up with the great ideas. We didn't move the needle. All what we did is we tried to say, I know better than you are. I know you better. Oh, you know this? Well, I know this. And it's just like shuffling chairs on the Titanic. So it's not like figure out what we really need to do as a group. And so the caring piece is a huge. I'm not saying knowing is not important. Knowing is very important. I can care about my customers. I can go visit. I've been around the world working with international customers, and the minute I go, if I care all the time, I'll say, I care, and they ask me questions, technical questions, and I'll say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm gonna take an action item. Oh, I'll get back with you. I'll get back with you. At the end, they'll say, you know what? Ali is such a great guy. I love him. He's so awesome, but he doesn't answer these questions. Could you send someone else? Now, at the same time, if I go and I just bombard them with, I know so many things about the business, and they ask me questions, and I don't show that I care about them truly, genuinely interested in helping them, they're gonna say, please get him out of here. All what he hears is about how great he is. So it's really having that balance. Caring and knowing is so critical.
Ali, thank you very much for being on the program. Okay, quickly before we get to Philip, he's going to take us through a wonderful display and explain how we could use it. I want to introduce Christian Turnorden from Southern California, and Heather from London, and Dr. Ken Lloyd. So how's the jerks at work doing?
Yeah, that's so funny. It's sort of like you're asking me how my work is going as I'm a jerk at work. No, it's going fine, and working primarily now on the final version of the performance appraisals and phrases for dummies, the rewrite of that book. But yeah, jerks continue to be out there, and it's very easy, as Paul mentioned, for employees to wander into that area and get themselves into trouble in bringing up topics at work that really are going to create nothing but dissension and, as Paul mentioned, possible bullying and other claims. And there are things that we can do to be just appropriate and effective in the workplace. But it's still out there. There will always be jerks at work, and the key thing for all of us is to make sure that we understand it and we do our best not to be one. But it's a common phenomenon, and we're gonna deal with it. And I agree with all of you that these times, particularly in America, are very tense. It's quite divisive now, which can tend to bring out more of the problems associated with those kinds of behaviors.
Thank you so much. Let's go to Atika. First time on the program, and so thank you so much for agreeing to be involved in our September 26th event. Tell us about your role. Based in Sweden, you work for a large corporation in global mobility, and but is your venue, is your stake as a stakeholder dealing with talent management across the board?
Yes, so we come under talent and rewards as part of the company organization, and we specifically deal with global mobility and talent management are two separate teams currently, but we all come under total rewards, talent and rewards. So in that sense, yes, we are aligned, absolutely, and it is very important for global mobility to be aligned with the talent management and talent acquisition teams in the company, because they move hand in hand. There is a huge pool of resources that global mobility knows of. If we are not aligned with each other, then that pool of resources is lost. And the one thing that I have seen is that people, when they move and have those international movements, when they come back to the home country, they don't find that their job that is being offered is in line with what they have experienced, what they have learned, and the attrition rates are quite high. So this is something that global mobility and talent should work together to minimize, because that is a huge investment for the company to on the employee on the international assignment. It comes with huge costs. So yes, of course, and if we are not taking care of our employee when coming back, then yeah, we really need to map the talent part of an assignment before. So it has to be a complete journey, and KPIs not just for when they are on assignment, but also what the business is thinking about. Why are they sending it? These are the conversations that as a global mobility partner, we should be having with the business. It's not like we are moving files and moving people here and there and preparing salary calculation and preparing the contracts. That's not just it. As a global mobility partner, we need to engage with talent. We need to engage with business. What do they think? Why are they sending this particular employee? What does he bring to the job? And what is the planning after he completes that assignment? Because we were talking about, even the branding part, they are the ambassadors of their company in the host country, not just so they are ambassadors for their home company in the host country unit, but as well as ambassadors of a country in the other country. So in a lot of ways, they bring so much value. And that is where I think this is a lot of work that needs to be done. And this is something that is not much aligned in most of the companies. Either talent management and global mobility is one group and one function that works in tandem. Otherwise, in our company, like bigger organization, it's separate unit. But then we have to have an agile way of working with talent. And this is something that is on my horizon.
Let me
Thank
ask you a
you.
quick question, and I want to bring in Christian into this conversation because he's also involved. So, Atika, do you imagine,
Mhm.
and I'm not doing this to put you on the spot, but I know I am a little bit. So, do you imagine the day when global mobility assignments or any project assignment is actually a result of design thinking and mapping what the assignment and the project is all about, with rest stops along the way for coaching and mentoring, all geared towards having a positive experience for the assignee and the family, if there is one, and then utilizing those newly learned skills as a result of the assignment, thinking positively, of course, right now. And where are you going to put that skill set, that new skill set next? So in other words, design thinking and planning with the other stakeholders, not just global mobility sitting over there and taking care of all the details, many details, important details. So that's my badly worded question. If you could take it from there, and Christian, please jump in.
Yeah, I mean, of course, we right now, I mean, yeah, we have global mobility and the way that we work, and we take care of assignments from start to end. But that's not what it is about. It is about how to have a employee experience. We should focus on employee experience, and all the stakeholders together need to contribute towards that, because that is one part that is definitely missing. Because we think, oh, the business looks at cost. We look at cost. When we are talking to the business, we look at cost. Our cost is actually quite the focus. What is employee experience? Can we have more flexible policies and design it in such a way to have a better employee experience? That is what we have to move towards. That is the ultimate target, that we have to have design thinking implemented in such a way and have, like I said, agile way of working with other cross-functionally, so that we can achieve those targets and achieve that result. And obviously learnings along the way. Because of course, no process at such a big scale can be designed in one go. There has to be lessons learned in each case. It is a build up to a workable solution.
Thank you. Christian.
So thanks, Atika. This is great, and it ties in with what I'm hearing and what I'm learning from people like Heather, for instance. One of the things that don't seem to be talked about as much is the intangible cost of being recognized in the industry as somebody who, as a company or an enterprise who fosters international mobility, who has a talent management structure in place that, among other things, involves being able to go abroad if somebody wants to with their family. There is enough money for that. And because of the coaching that you mentioned, people actually don't just do their job, but they really learn something. They're being fostered in progressing with their career, both in terms of what they can do and in terms of what they know or how they feel, to Ali's point earlier. And that in turn then will have a positive impact on your succession planning in your talent management goals. People who, it's going to be much easier to send somebody to fix a problem if they've already lived abroad, for instance. When you need someone, they have the skill set already because you've seen to it in the past.
Atika?
Very good question. Yes.
Yeah, great. Okay, thank you. Joseph, what do you think so far of this gathering? It should be an interesting program, September 26th.
Absolutely, Ed. It's always a joy for me to be in a room with so much wisdom, quite frankly. And I don't say nice things for the sake of it. But I always learn so much from listening, and just following on partly from what Atika and Christian just said, but also something Paul and Ali referred to earlier. One of the guys I learned most from is a guy called Chase Hughes. Some of you may have come across the behavior panel on YouTube. But Chase Hughes is a former US Navy veteran. He finished off as a commander, then started his own business, trains corporates, but also trains a lot of US special forces in psych ops and various other things like that. But one of the things he was talking about in an interview recently was when he made the transition, started his own company, one of the big mistakes he made was he employed an entrepreneur as CEO rather than a business person. And one of the things, when we get into talking about culture, one of the things we tend to forget sometimes is that there's an overbalance in terms of how people feel and making employees feel welcome and at home and comfortable and all of that stuff. And it's all nice, all necessary, but we can go overboard in terms of missing out on getting the business done.
Interesting.
That's such a vital part that we have to keep that in focus, and we have to make sure the employees keep that in focus, regardless of how they feel on a particular day. And by all means, bring in the empathy and the compassion if somebody has a problem with the family, etc. I get that, but we do have to make sure we get the business done.
Thank you very much for that. Heather, welcome again, and congratulations on being recognized recently, winning that award. Why don't you tell our audience about that award?
Yeah, hi everybody. It's so lovely to see everyone. And yes, a couple of new faces. Philip, I don't think I've met you, so I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Lovely to meet you. Atika, loved listening to you and listening to some of those divisions and, how you seem to be vocationally inspired to find a way of synergizing those things and bringing people together. And Joseph, lovely to see you again. Paul, I've been following you and Stephen's book, and Ken, lovely. So yeah, it's very lovely to see you all again. And Ed, of course, you too. Christian was kind enough to attend a recent presentation. I showcased my research, which has won a couple of awards, and Christian was kind enough to join and support me as I presented last week. So my research is really about, or one of the main outcomes of my research, which Atika, you didn't mention the word, but I think it's what you mean, and that is human-centric, that we are entering a paradigm shift. I think Paul's mentioned it before, that we are becoming, instead of more organization-led or employer-led, we're becoming more employee-led, because the paradigm is shifting. And so what I wanted to do, rather than talk about the research, because I know people have heard it a few times, is just share one of the slides, because I'd like to talk about this when we do the Malmo session. I'd like to talk a little bit just about the evolution of the psychological contract. Now, we all know the work contract. We all know that when we join a company, we sign a legal document with certain obligations and ramifications. But what we don't ever do is talk about the psychological contract, which is a fancy pants name for the expectations we have as an employee of the employer when we start working with them. And what I've done here is put the evolution of the psychological contract, which is really about the expectations of the employer and the employee. And I've put it against a backdrop of the industrial revolutions, because what we're seeing is we are moving very, very fast in this new era of generative AI towards IR5, or Industry 5.0, as we call it over here in Europe. But what's really interesting about, the emergence of the psychological contract, which was in the 1960s, is that it was against a backdrop of people finally talking about what motivates us. What motivates us in the workplace? It doesn't matter what workplace it is. What inspires us? What makes us get up in the morning and go to work, whether it's as a manager or a leader or both? And from the 1960s, and through research that has been done, I am a business psychologist, is that through studying motivation and performance in the workplace and employee engagement, what emerged was this social exchange agreement and the employer-employee relations. In 1989, this is when the psychological contract was discovered. And what they saw was that there are two types. There's the transactional and there's the relational. And the transactional is very much about, I come into work and I'm supposed to do 8 hours, but I'm going to do 9 hours because there's a lot of work here. But when I have my end of year review, I'm expecting to get a really good ranking and grade, and I expect to meet my performance targets, and I expect to be promoted in 2 years. Now, none of this is verbalized. This is all happening inside our thoughts and beliefs, and what we believe is fair. So fairness is really the order of the day at the moment, especially with the millennials and especially with the zillennials. So we saw the duty of care arising really in IR4. We see DEI and B, environmental, social governance and corporate social responsibility. We see all of these things emerging along with the patterns of external market forces, as we saw yesterday with the drop. People are comparing the Black Monday of yesterday to the Black Monday of 1987. My husband came home from work and was talking about the financial crisis in 2008 and whether we're heading towards that, all because America, there's talk of a potential recession. So what we're seeing is that we're all part of, as individuals working, of a much broader landscape with this wonderful technological advancements, the external market forces. But then we've got values, we've got the notion of fairness, we have the notion of health and well-being post-pandemic against this backdrop of massive technological advances where we're trying to save money, we're trying to use cost containment to be efficient. So when we put all of these together, and I hear Ali and Stephen and the Humoni and the talk about, management and leadership and, what do we do with talent? How do we attract? How do we retain? How do we balance talent management? I see this picture, this very broad picture of where we are, and where we're heading. And for me, I think business psychology can really help inform us with different types of research, whether it's quantitative or qualitative, just to help us keep an eye on the ball and to make sure that we're as human-centric as possible. Put health and well-being, fairness, and the duty to care in your vision and planning in order to strive towards not just agility for transactions, but also agility in the relations that are being built. So sorry, Christian, because I know it's the second time you've seen this slide. But I just thought it really puts things into perspective. Look around IR 4 and 5 and look at what's happening in comparison to the lack of things happening and how slow the previous industrial revolutions were. You know, IR 1 and 2, there were 100 years between them, you know, with the evolution of steam power and coal. And, you know, the assembly line and Fordism and how that brought, you know, revolutionized automation. And here we are today with the wonderful generative AI and the possibilities that are open to us. But let's not forget that we're human and that we need human-centric approaches.
This is
Heather,
excellent.
I
I thank you very much.
And over again.
Yeah, this is really good. Thank you. And when we
Really
get
good.
to
I like it.
when we get to London, Heather, on October 1 in person inside the Global Trade Bank, HSBC, hosting me again for the fourth time. And I want you to bring the slide in early and let's double down on it and get the audience who will have several high-ranking, large corporate backgrounds in the audience on October 1 in person in London. Tika, I've asked you to ask your colleague in London to join us in person if that's possible. Let's communicate about that. If not, you know, perhaps you'd like to join us virtually. I have to get further clearance from HSBC about going virtual. They don't like it, but they do use it. And we have done it with them last time, and it worked okay to some extent. But the way the system is designed, the audience finds it a little difficult, the audience in the room. So we need to work on that further. And of course, this is live and we're recording all of this conversation right now. So more about that later. Last time, or maybe it was the time before, I don't remember, I'm sorry, in London, getting fuzzy here. We had the Hong Kong-based senior manager of the global unit of HSBC, that is my host, sponsor, facilitator, and a young woman based in Hong Kong, Chinese, spoke perfect English. She did a talk and it went over really well. And I'm inviting her to return and be involved in this next discussion. And that would be an excellent addition, Heather, to your slide. Also, I've invited Yvonne Quay from the World Bank Family Network to join us again. And we're building up that audience. So Atika, it would be wonderful if you can be represented in person along with the other London-based corporates who will be in the room. Now I'll get back to you all about the virtual component of the London event. It will be quite a strong event, I promise. Philip Berry, thank you for your patience. Philip and I have known each other a very long time. He was the winner of our first ever Communicator of the Year award. I think it was 99, no, it was 2000. And that was when you're senior global HR, global, working responsible for 60 countries and people worldwide with Colgate-Palmolive. And I thank you for all of that and sticking with me all these years. Philip Berry.
Hi, everybody. What I'd like to do, especially from the standpoint of time, the piece that I'm going to talk about is combining the issues of personal branding with leadership. And I want to talk about it from that perspective. From myself, in terms of the type of work, and I'm going to show just a few slides to so that way it helps to truncate the conversation in terms of what I'd like to talk about. Let's see. Okay, good. So one of the things that I've been finding as I've been working with individuals from the standpoint of organizational effectiveness, and also thinking back on how I moved a number of people to different countries, not just from the United States over to another country, but from from the England to South Africa to Chile to China, something like that. And so one of the things that I found in the whole mix is that individuals are always trying to improve, especially when you talk about global relocation. They move into a situation, and what they're trying to do is to improve how they are positioning themselves in order to improve the business. But quite frankly, there's a lot more to it. And let me put into this perspective, because the goal of the session that I'll be talking about in September will be to talk about how individuals can use this whole section of personal branding to improve their impact, because leadership is really not a noun. It should be a verb, which means that we need to understand all of the competencies, capabilities, and skills that go into that. Yeah, and one of the things that I found is that fundamentally, individuals in their business situation, in their lives, and in their work, also with their teams, they want to make a difference. So they're not just going to improve their standard of living. What they're doing is they're saying, what we want to do is to make a difference in how this situation that I'm in right now is going to be very different from the way it is right now. And not only different, but also that I want to make an impact to step change it to a higher level of progression. And one of the things that I found when I was working with individuals who are in their assignments, they're saying, well, I'm in a nice position, but is it in line with my intentions? And is it making the type of impact that I want to make, not only in the situation that I'm in, but also in my career? And how do I look at that from that total perspective? And so we're always looking at a situation where we're saying, well, how can we instill more passion, purpose, and meaning in our interactions? And that's one of the challenges that we have right now with individuals, because they're in a situation and they're saying, well, this is not working for me. My whole issue regarding my purpose, what was my purpose? Does it provide meaning? Is this company working for me? Or do I have to do something differently? And that's where we want to begin to look at how we combine the whole issue of personal branding with that. And moreover, what we want to do is to say, well, we're successful. We're in a situation where people will say, well, I'm successful. But what made an individual successful yesterday, what makes them successful today, is not going to hold forever. And so that's where we need to look at the personal change piece that is going along with the other changes that are taking place. And so the session that I'll be going into is going to talk about how do we change the trajectory now? What are some of the focus areas that are important so that individuals can begin to say, what we're going to do is we're going to rebrand. And so by rebranding, what we want to do is to talk about how we're rebranding to be better than we believe. So that's so I wanted to just present just these slides from that perspective, from that standpoint. What I'm going to be doing is going into a whole lot more detail in each of these in the session that's going to be in September.
Yeah, that's September 26th, everybody. Philip, these are beautiful slides. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Ken Lloyd, what do you think of all this?
That's really interesting. I agree with you just on your last comment. Just visually, this is a wonderful presentation. Slides are quite captivating. And the messages that you have embedded here are clear, they're concise, they're direct, and they're very appropriate. I know there's a concept of what got you here won't get you there. And that's that's really what we're saying, to continue our growth, our development, our learning. And that is going to call for some rebranding. The world is changing, and we have to demonstrate our own growth and agility and sense of purpose as we move along. So I'm really looking forward to hearing more about what Philip has to say and share on this. I think this is excellent information.
Well, Stephen?
Well, Philip, I'm looking for a graphic artist, so I'll give you a call tomorrow. No, excellent, excellent. Never haven't really thought about that branding aspect of leadership, so I want to talk to Philip in more detail about that. I'd like to go back, if I could, Ed, to something Ollie brought up about this. There's always this dichotomy about what does it mean to be a manager? What does it mean to be a leader? And I think that would be a good topic for your September 26. And my perspective on this is it's not an either or proposition, and it's not a 50-50 balance proposition. It's a harmony proposition. How do you harmonize those roles? And that's, as most of you know, when I created the word humanity leadership, I combine the words human, humanity, and harmony to talk about harmony in the workplace, and also how do you harmonize your role as a leader. So the analogy I would make here would be, if you want to talk about, I want to be personally fit, or I want to have mental well-being, or however you want to define it. You can't just do one thing. You can't just go to the gym and lift weights. You can't just go and run 4 or 5 times a week, or go out and walk 5 times a week. You have to also consider the food that you're taking in. It doesn't mean dieting, it just means more nutritional understanding. It also means understanding the sleep you need to be mentally fit, or even personally fit, understanding how to manage stress, social networks, the importance of having conversations and social networks outside your family. It's something I learned when I wrote the book, because my father had early Alzheimer's disease, and about brain health. So you have to harmonize all those things in your life if you want to achieve a level of fitness or well-being, or however you want to define it. Well, I suggest the same thing leaders need to do. They need to harmonize how they're going to be a manager, how they're going to be a motivator, how they're going to be an inspirer, how they're going to be a leader, when and where to wear these various hats. And it's a no one size fits all proposition, because we all lead different people, and people are all different and unique. So if I was the leader of this group, I would have to lead Christian differently than I would lead Heather, and differently than I would lead Atika. So that, it's not about me being the leader, it's how do I lead people in a harmonized way. So I just want to throw that out to everybody. And Heather, a suggestion for your slide. You have, I think it was 1969 or so, you had the employer-employee relationship. I would suggest on the far right, you have another circle that now says employee-employer relationship, and note the order, because that has changed. The war for talent is over, and talent has won. And so that whole relationship dynamic from the employer to the employee has now been turned 180 degrees on its head, and it's now the employee-employer relationship. Thanks, Ed.
Thank you. Now there's nobody who could better have the next microphone is Paul Falco.
I was hoping you'd say that. It's good, Ed. Stephen, I totally agree.
He's my cleanup hitter, and I just try and get on base. He's going to bring us home.
Stephen, it's so funny you bring that up. The talent scarcity is for the rest of the century. We are just coming out of COVID, and we're thinking talent scarcity related to the pandemic. Truth of the matter is, through the book that I rely on, everyone, if you want to read a good book, it's called The Next 100 Years, and it's by George Friedman, Friedman, New York Times bestseller. It came out in 2009, so it didn't come out yesterday. But when it projects out what's happening globally in the industrialized nations, this book, The Next 100 Years, really gives you a good insight into the importance of talent scarcity and how the major economy is going to be dealing with it, including the United States. I think, Philip, I'll go back to what you said just a minute ago. I love this idea of how you brand yourself. I was reading, and what I've been writing about, there was a KPMG Global CEO Outlook 2024 survey. And it's not the only one out there. There are a number of them. But basically, when you frame what CEOs are looking for, it's very different now than it was pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
And these ideas of creativity and innovation and the idea of agility and flexibility and change readiness, everyone's gearing up for this. And I think people would be smart to brand or reinvent themselves according to what those priorities are. So there's so much going on there. And I'll also, Heather, if you'll allow me, I love what you're writing about IR4, IR5, this whole industrial revolution. We all think of the 18th century. There have been a number of these changes going forward. From 1969, when we entered what they call IR4. 2016, we entered IR3 in 1969, IR4 just in 2016. And now we're talking IR5 coming. And the funny thing is, you're right. From Industrial Revolution 1 to 2, there were 100 years between them. Now we're talking about decades, maybe years. It's moving so incredibly quickly. To be in the writing space, fortunately for me, you guys, has been great. There's so much to write about out there. There really is. We're building the plane while we're flying it. And Ed, if I could take everything together that we're all talking about, is how do we reinvent ourselves and how do we provide the right and proper type of leadership to help people do their best work every day with peace of mind, but also to thrive, to become, to develop an achievement mindset. That's really where this is all moving. And I'm glad to be in such great company because we're all looking at the building differently, some from above, some from below, some from within, some from the side, but we're all focusing on the same concept. It's a fun time to be here. And Ed, you're bringing together these great minds is just really, really exciting to what Joseph said earlier. I just love being part of the company here.
Thank
If
you.
Can I just tie into something that Paul and a few others just said just briefly, because this conversation is so useful, and it takes me back to when in the late 60s, my first job was at IBM, and I was a techie at that time. And when I look at IR then and what's happening now in the workplace, there are so many changes that have taken place, and the psychological contract, as Heather has talked about, is different now. That's why Steve says, well, look, the words should be employee, employer, as opposed to the other way around. There's a paradigm shift that's taken place, and unfortunately, organizations that don't get that right away not have in the workplace. But if they don't start in the workplace, then they're not going to have leadership with their markets to dealing with and positioning those products to consumers. And which means the last point I make on it is that the societal issues that we're seeing right now, like the US really has it, and it's not only in the US, we're getting it screwed up in a lot of places because we're not understanding what people want. Politics is leading people in a different direction, with the leadership that is not being exhibited, in many countries. And I'm just hoping that will change, and that and it has to begin to change in the workplace. The workplace is where a lot of these changes will begin to happen, and it will lead the impetus of it on a societal level.
Philip, your background for the audience out there, Philip's background, extensive background, has been in the university system in New York City. So how is university teaching needing to change in light of what you and Heather and everybody else is talking about right now?
What it needs to do is that we have to begin to address. There's a statement that I believe Alvin Toffler made. He says that we need to learn, unlearn, and relearn, which means that if we don't, the future will belong to those who are going to relearn and not take just the education that they get in the classrooms and say, that's it, we're finished. We have our degree and now we can go out there. Well, we have to continue to relearn so that way we can make a better proposition to people regarding even why should I go to school? What am I going to do? What is it going to be about? I mean, and so some universities are ahead on that, and others are still into the old model of the classroom. I teach, and you listen.
Dr. Ken Lloyd.
It's just fascinating. I'm thinking what comes to my mind is that as we look forward, we either have to rebrand or retreat. If we don't rebrand and grow and learn and develop and expand ourselves, we've kind of given up. We've waved the white flag and we are going to be left behind. So it's a choice. What do you want to do? Do you want to continue to grow and learn and advance and build on this wonderful life that we've all been given? Or do you want to sit there and be stagnant and essentially retreat? So to me, that's the choice. Rebrand, retreat. Take your pick, not to oversimplify your brilliance, but just as kind of a mnemonic for me, it's something to think about. And I'm totally serious about it. People that turn away from rebranding are turning away from a far more fulfilling, enriching, and frankly, joyous life, home and at work, that would await them.
Christian.
I want just to say on all the points of leadership, management, and human connection, that is where we are moving. And that was really a good slide, Heather. Really liked it. And the movement is not going to just like that. It has to be an institutional development of thought where so there, of course, the university and the education system is very important. But even without that, when an employee is there and he feels, or he or she feels, the support from the manager, which would include more engaged approach, bringing your humanity to work to create a more cohesive environment and loyalty in the workforce. Because if we do not have just promoting health and well-being without having these genuine building of relationships between the management and the employee, it's going to leave this lacuna in between. It has to work together, that personal touch. And right now we can easily say, oh, the managers have so many things to do and they don't have the time. But we have to have this face-to-face interactions more and more within the team, with the management, and that will lead to building the genuine relationships between the employees and the management and the employee. That would then lead to that it will aid the human connection and bring the missing element back in the organizations. And of course, people as an organization, like we do a lot of social work that also add value to how employee feels in the organization, that how many social or community services that we are running. And basically, just also promoting a culture of gratitude, of saying thank you. We just take for granted a lot of times things that each part does. Okay, it's your role, you're going to do it. No, but we need to express. So that, that is also where education and the building blocks of education and can bring that element when a person is in the workforce also.
So Atika, the kind of people that you're relocating for Hitachi Energy, are these scientists? Are these engineers that make the windmills work?
Yeah, so we are into power systems. So I would say that behind every light bulb in the world, there is our company's technology or service. So we touch the whole world. So in that sense, yes, there are engineers, there are scientists as well, and so it's just and there are managers, there are people related to quality, sales, and everyone. So we move a different. So it's the canvas is quite huge on the movement and the type of professions that they're in, that we are moving.
Fascinating. Christian, did you want to?
Yes, please. So I was going to bring what Atika said and what Philip said together, but Atika kind of already did it. One thing I would like to add here is, as the father of a 15-year-old and a 19-year-old, one of the things that we're talking about what Philip said quite a bit, and in our household, and one of the things that I see are missing being taught is critical thinking. A lot of what we see, what my daughter's peers seem to be doing is really just learning to get that AP credit, learning to get that grade. But there's not a whole lot going on in terms of how do you apply this. And then Atika, your standpoint is, all right, these people will eventually become managers, right? So if they don't have that, if they never learned how to apply what they've learned in college, how's that going to work? Where they're going to get that from to do what they need, what we need them to do. So I think that there's another show in there, Ed, talking about what are we learning in college and what do we really need to learn.
Philip, want to jump in on that?
No, I think he's right. I can't add much to that except to say that I believe that the companies that are going to survive are those companies that become learning environments.
Yep.
And one of the
That's
things that I enjoyed about, like when I said I started out at IBM, and before I went into consumer products, I also was working at Digital Equipment Corporation. It doesn't exist anymore, but this was the time when Apple Computer and Dell came into existence, and they were learning institutions. I mean, and that's one of the things that I felt was very, in matter of fact, and in the day, Xerox was a learning institution. So you can look back at those companies, and also Google was a learning institution. I think it probably still is. Those are the companies that are going to thrive in the future.
Yeah. Paul Falcone?
Yeah, the funny thing, Philip, I totally agree. Atika, what you said hit an emotion with me. The funny thing is, everyone, when it comes to great leadership, and what I'm trying to write about these days is really the idea of leadership and interpersonal relationship and leadership communication and building trust and respect. Because as we get more technical, we start to lose the human piece of this, which again, Stephen speaks to your book. I think the idea, though, is great leadership is emotional. And when I talk to people about that, they cringe and I don't want to think about emotions in the workplace. And it's like, wait, slow down. When you think about the best boss you've ever had, just use that as a simple prism. The best boss you ever had, what made that person your best boss? Oh, she brought out the best in me. She made me feel like I could do no wrong. She challenged me to do things I didn't even think I was ready for. She had more faith in me more faith in me at the time than I had in myself. These functions, these descriptions are emotional in nature. So to be a great boss, it comes down to character and caring. That's it. Do you care about the employees, which is one of the things the Gen Y and Gen Z keep polling over and over. What are the top 5 or 10 things they want? They want a management team that cares about them personally. So you're hitting the nail on the head there. And it's also this idea of this is easier than we're making it. Could you become someone's favorite boss, just like that favorite boss that you had? How do you pay it forward? Which again, Atika speaks to the attitude of gratitude. If you talk to your employees about coming from gratitude as opposed to its opposite, which is not enoughness, not enough time, not enough money, not enough resources, not enough whatever. Keep them thinking about what they're thankful for and how they're able to pay things forward. That becomes the emotional connection that keeps people tied into an organization. They have that book, First Break All the Rules, right? Where they did the whole Gallup survey that said people join companies and leave managers. Well, your reality is if you feel like your boss is someone you admire, you trust and you respect, you're not going anywhere for 20%. You can talk all you want about the war of talent and war for talent and everything. Truth of the matter is, I'm not going to leave where I am right now to go to work for someone who may spit fire and throw chairs. I just am not going to take that risk. I love working for Ed too much. That's what keeps people emotionally engaged, and it brings it all together full circle. But we have to almost frame it in the sense of think about the love you've had for the best boss you've ever had. Think about how you pay that forward. And again, it's a simple prism, but it kind of ties everything together very nicely.
So as we come near a close here, I don't want this to end, but I know that everybody has busy lives. I'm thinking of some kind of a TV show has to come along. Stephen, you got screenwriting in your background there. So the concept here is that thinking of the Waltons, the old TV show, and John Boy, and the wisdom that comes out of the family discussions, and how it was expressed in that 30 minutes or whatever that show was, the Waltons, and then the series Friends, the TV, and how the young people were portrayed and how they actually express themselves. And hopefully it wasn't all acting, that they were really true to what they were doing, but it came across great. And to this day, that Friends TV show is syndicated. I was reading yesterday that it is syndicated around the world in different languages. So it's the same visual, but the dubbing is, like, for instance, Ukrainian, is what I was reading in the Wall Street Journal yesterday. And it's so weird. That'd be strange. But that's exactly what we need here, is some kind of a communications device that becomes socialized and super popular somehow. Attitude of gratitude, come from it. So why don't you define that in English, Paul?
Well, I think the idea is, when it works the same with kids. When I teach at UCLA or when I'm writing and I talk about, what are the key things that help you see life a certain way, right? It's all about perspective. And they say, change your perspective and you'll change your perception. In other words, change the way you look at something and you'll experience it differently. If you can come from gratitude, thankfulness, and appreciation, the world aligns. You feel better about yourself. You feel better about everyone around you, and that emanates from you. It's just becomes part of your brand, right? To Philip's point, if you're coming from anything other than that, if people sense selfishness in your motives, if you tend to be a negative Nelly, as we say in English, right in the United States, the negative Nellies or the Debbie Downers are the ones who just always seem to find fault with everything. They're never happy about anything. That also emanates from you, and that becomes part of your brand. And so in the classroom, I talk to people about, when they use your name, oh yeah, I know Paul Falcone. What's the next word that follows? Is it an and, or is it a but? I know Paul Falcone, and he's wonderful. He's been here for 3 years. He's a top sales producer, and you really want to get to know him because he'll help you. Or is it, yeah, I know Paul Falcone. He's been here for 3 years. He's a top sales producer, but you better be careful. He's not necessarily someone who's going to, be there for you. And he is very touchy, and, he can be moody, and think about that. Help people in terms of their own career and professional development to come up with that narrative. And are they the and, or are they the but? What I can tell you is, usually the ones who are the and are coming from the gratitude and the appreciation and the thankfulness. The ones coming from the but tend to be more pessimistic, tend to be in more of a negative energy, despite the fact that they may be an excellent producer. They just tend to bring people down. And I think that helps people see it in a very simple light.
Joseph, can I have the Dublin perspective of all this?
Yeah, well, welcome to Dublin of the teeming rain. It's just the skies have just opened there. So hope that's not putting it down or on anything. What I'm hearing today is the beginning of some other essential and, I think, really invigorating conversations. And there's so many interrelated points here, so much wisdom, so much humanity shared again. But there are two themes to me that present that I can see being part of future conversations. I'm sure they're happening in many places already, but it'd be lovely to have it here. One is, how do we ensure that all the relevant stakeholders are part of the conversation, and that conversation is not a Tower of Babel? Because so often what we're seeing is accountants speak a certain language, tech people speak a completely different language, HR people speak something else, and they end up talking at each other rather than to And that comes back to the whole thing of the humanity and the gratitude and what attitude are people bringing, plus getting out of their heads and bringing more of the heart into it. But also then the other question that comes to mind for me is who trains, who prepares, and who chooses the leaders? And there's no simple answer to that. There's no one size fits all answer, but it's a vital one in terms of where we go and how we go forward.
Taking my breath away. Welcome back, Ali Shami. Thank you for joining us again. Hello, Ali. Speak.
Hello.
Yeah, you're back.
I'm back. Yes, yes. There was my last meeting ended, so I thought I need to jump in and learn more.
Well, it's great to have your voice and your attention again, but I can't begin to summarize what you've missed. So I'm not going to try, but I'll send you the program link so you can catch up on it.
Well, I figured if I can catch the last 10 minutes, that would be great too. So
okay, so I want to ask you, Heather. I mean, this is like your 10th time on this program, and I thank you, and I want you to do more, of course. But that slide that you showed, that was just terrific, and all the language that you use to make it make sense. Relate that now to this issue of dual career, the reality of that problem and the solutions. Talk to us in summary as we come to a close here in the next few minutes about the solutions to the dual career dilemma.
Okay, so I mean, Joseph, you touched on one solution would be, how do we train? How do we, how do we recruit? How do we hire talent and then keep performance management balanced? And it's the same in global mobility. So the dual career for, Atika and for other people who may not be familiar with the term, it's basically about two people in a relationship having a dual career. So, and that also means that that family or that couple is dual income. And during global mobility, when one lucky person gets the opportunity for a career advancement generally, to move abroad and have an expatriate assignment, what happens to the plus one? What happens to the person who then gives up their career to accompany another person? So I've worked in this field now for 20 years and I'm a dual career myself. And my research was called Peace of Mind on the Move. How do we get peace of mind on the move? And Atika spoke about human connection, and human connection was the missing link that emerged, funnily enough, from the research study that took me a year as being the missing link on assignment. This is what people felt they did not have at all on assignment. And that in turn created a potential breach of the psychological contract. So this is the underpinning of my research. So where are the answers? And Ed, if I had the answers, then, I probably wouldn't be doing this job anymore, because I feel I can't leave this career, or I can't leave this until I've made some positive progress, because everyone I speak to, including researchers in the field, tell me that I'm lucky I've only witnessed this for 20 years. They've been working in the field for 40 years and they're still not seeing any change. And that fills me with sadness, if I'm really honest, because I experienced it myself and I had no support from the company. I had plenty of support from my partner, but that just wasn't enough. I couldn't get a work authorization to work. I went through a depression and my husband became promoted and I became unemployed. So this is the driving force and the vocation in me. But again, I was able to do a master's degree. I became a business psychologist and I felt I have to give back into this community, and I vocationally, or my advocacy in this area has continued for the past 20 years. So I've been learning a lot from my friend Christian here, who worked in RMCs for 20 years. And obviously it's at different levels, okay? And I think we cannot oversimplify things. As humans, we want simple answers, and this is what we crave. And we want to blame. We find it quite satisfactory to read an article in a paper and then apportion blame. It makes us feel better about the world, to have the bad person and the good person, so the horns and the halos. But as a psychologist, and what I would share with you all today, is that things are multifaceted, they are very complex and multifactorial. And so what I would say is that there are different levels. The assignee and the dual career family has to take just as much responsibility for the decisions they make to take that assignment as the RMC that is doing the dashboarding and finding all the supply chain to make sure that that move is going to be successful. And then you have policy. You have the policymakers who are determining whether or not they're going to use diversity, equity, and inclusion as part of their policy so that people feel they belong on assignment, or whether it's much easier to have it just as a budget, and you are this status, and because you're this status, your budget is going to be cut at a certain level. So there's an element of policy shaping as well. But then who makes policy? Who makes policy? It's like you've got the White House, but who's making the decisions? It's generally all about senior leadership and the influence that they have. And very often they're distanced from the equation on the ground of what's actually happening when a global mobility assignment takes place. So, and in each company, it could be different. So you can't really have a one size fits all. And I think this is what I'm learning. And it's exactly what Philip says about relearning. How my experience on assignment is no longer the experience on assignment that's happening today. And I'm very good at putting that aside and saying, okay, so we've got millennials now, we've got zillennials make up 50% of the workforce. They're the ones that have a different mindset and a growth mindset. So how can we make this dual career dilemma grow? How can we grow it and find solutions? And I think for me, it's about talking in forums like this, sharing insights with people like Christian, who have wonderful years of experience in global mobility, and learning from Ali and Paul and Stephen and Atika, who's on the ground now with your own talent management, excitement and adventures, and learning and listening and being agile and in my own mindset, not to impose the framework that I had where it was very negative, and try and find solutions by reading the research, looking at what works, and maybe taking each company as the industry that they're in and looking more at the best practice in that industry. And I think when you find best practice and you can actually then mirror that in certain ways as a role model, I think that would be brilliant. And I have found some best practice actually with one of the GAFA companies. I found best practice, and I do try and share that best practice. But a lot of companies, they don't want to listen because they're not ready to listen. So it's an ongoing dilemma, but there's hope.
Well, Heather, this is a subject so close to my heart, spousal support. And again, like you said, the challenge is a bit much, but the statistics are on our side. They will motion change, because a lot of people, the millennials and the zillennials, they are not going to go, especially in Nordic countries, they are not ready to go because their spouse cannot accompany them. They will not compromise on their pension and social security. Why should they? And then the assignments are not happening and we are not getting the right resource. So of course, there has to be some kind of change there. And I think data will, and collecting data and pushing it forward will make changes. But yes, we have a long way to go. But Heather, I will connect with you. I really would like to know more about the best practices. And this is, this topic is really close to me.
Okay, Christian.
So Paul just left the room, but I wanted to tie in what something he said, which was about gratitude to the employer with what Heather said. One of the things that Heather said, which was that the responsibility also lies with the transferee and the transferring family. So what needs to happen is not just that we have these offerings, that we have these opportunities as employers that we can share, but also that we somehow pick up where this gratitude is with the transferee and with the transferring family, and use this, leverage this to build something that's a positive value and a positive mindset for everyone. The reason why I'm saying this is that I've had in my years moving people, I've had so many people who were just all about, it was all about themselves. It was all about their entitlement. It was all about, what do I get? And they missed the bigger picture. That what they got was a life experience that not many people have, particularly if their company pays for it. My wife and I moved to California from Switzerland without any company support. There wasn't a company because we didn't have any jobs.
Well, I'm speechless. Somebody else talk. Philip.
No, I have to go, unfortunately. I have another meeting to go into, but this has been a great session, and I look really forward to continuing this realm of conversation with all of the people who are on here. Thanks very much. This has really made my whole week for all of you here. Thank you.
Thank you all. Okay,
Nice.
Ali, thanks for coming back.
Oh, absolutely. See, I already learned, so I'm so glad I came back.
All right, so what are you going to do the rest of the day?
Need to go as well.
Thank you,
Thank you so
Atika.
much,
Nice to
everyone.
meet
It
you.
was great to meet you.
Thank you.
Same. Bye-bye.
We'll be in touch. I'm going to send everybody the program later today. Thank you.
I have to roll now too.
Okay,
Bye all,
guys.
and thanks for a great session.
Thank you.
Ken.
Thank you.
Thanks.